Hey, Dandavat Chinmoy Prabhu. So we're live. We also have Somji today with us. And Shamaji has joined us from Australia. So, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So, my Dandavats to all Vaishnavas, devotees, servitors of Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mutt worldwide. We're trying to be of some service. We're at the sanction and at the order of Srila Bhakti Pawan Janardhan Mahārāj. We're broadcasting at the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhariju. And let me bring on the panel for today. I have our distinguished guests here. We have Sripad Chinmoy Dev Prabhu, Dandavat Chinmoy Dev Prabhu.
Dandavat.
We have Hare Krishna. And then we have Sripad Arun Krishna Prabhu who just joined us.
Dandavat Prabhu.
Dandavat. We have Somji. Somji has joined us after some time. There he is. Namaskar Somji. And we also have Shamaji all the way from Australia. She is joining us.
Dandavat Prabhu.
Dandavat, Dandavat. So very happy to have everyone here. And then before we begin, as is customary, we will have Mangalacharan, auspicious invocation, mercy of our Guru Varg. So those who can, please join in. Otherwise, in a meditative mood, you can listen. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaisnavam Sacha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Pariyana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Sacha Om Ajnanathmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Nama Guru Abhishta Sapurakam Guru Ganayarashisha Sambhushitam Chinta Chinta Samasta Vedanipunam Shri Rupa Panthanugam Govinda Bhidam Ujjalam Vartanam Bhaktianvitam Sundaram Mande Vishwaguruncha Divya Bhagavat Premdo Hibij Pradam Devam Divyatanum Suchandra Badanam Balarka Chelanchitam Chandrananda Puram Sadeka Varnam Vairagya Vidyam Buddhim Shri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Varam Vandetam Shubhadam Madeka Sharanam Nasiswaram Śrīdharam Shri Siddhanta Saraswati Vidito Gauriya Gurvanvaye Bhato Bhanuriva Prabhat Gagane Gaura Sankirtane Mayavadati Mingilodara Udhritta Jivaniman Krishna Prema Sudabdi Gahana Sukham Pradat Prabhum Tam Bhaje Namo Gaura Kishoraya Bhaktavadhuta Murtaye Gaurangra Padma Bhrangaya Radha Bhavanishevini Mande Bhakti Vinodam Shri Gaura Shakti Sarupakam Bhakti Shastragya Samrajam Radharasa Sudhanidim Gaura Brajashita Shaira Vaishnavaira Vanda Vigraham Jagannatha Prabhum Vande Premabdhim Riddha Vaishnavam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubheva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Sarupakam Bhaktavtaram Bhaktakhyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Namo Mahavadannaye Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratushe Namah. So we're continuing our reading of universal creation, which is the topic carryover from last week's discussion that we were having and we were reading. Just as a brief recap, that this is a popular and important topic with sincere seekers of all levels. And I once had this question and looked at various conceptions and was not satisfied completely. In some cases, it was too nebulous and vague. In some cases, it just appeared to me that the deity or the personality was just laboring too much. They were spending 3 days here and then again go back to heaven, then come back, then go elsewhere. And by the end of it, I had more sympathy than anything else. So, and then there's, of course, the scientific, the Big Bang Theory, which keeps evolving and morphing into different explanations, and which is fine. But in this case, we find that Śrīla Bhakti Rakṣhak Śrīdhar Goswāmī Mahārāj has come to our rescue to completely satisfy anyone and everyone who is interested in knowing in depth what this process is, start to finish. In Bhagavad-Gita, again, a brief recap. If someone tries to ascertain or tries to understand the creative process, the process of universal creation, simply by reading Bhagavad-Gita is very difficult by self-reading, because as a theme, it's just not there. It is scattered in various chapters, and to be able to gather all of that information, make head or tail of it, understand it, it's a tall process. And even so, if one does that, it's a bird's eye view. It's a general kind of a explanation that's given. So one has to then go deeper into Srimad Bhagavatam and try to get into the details, which is really, really not recommended if someone wants to do it by themselves, because that's the nature of Srimad Bhagavatam. There's various aspects to studying Srimad Bhagavatam, and unless one gets higher order or sanction from higher Vaishnavas, it's just not worth it. Or it's, I would say, it's not going to have the effect that one is seeking. So here, in the subjective evolution of consciousness that we are studying from and we are reading from, which is by Om Vishnu Pachila Bhakti Rakṣhak Śrīdhar Goswāmī Mahārāj, in chapter 2, the chapter 2 is all about creation. And he has everything from the Shastra, from Manu Samhita, from Srimad Bhagavatam, from Bhagavad-Gita, and there are many things in here which, if you try and find in the Upanishads or in Samhitas, you won't find, but they're here. So this is like pre-digested revelation for us from a Param Vaishnava. Not to give any certificates to anyone, but it is what it is, and it is our highest benefit that we have access to this. So any sincere people who are listening in, tune in the future, I would just simply say that please read this. Subjective Evolution of Consciousness is the name of the book, and this is the second chapter called The Creation. And so I'm going to pick it up from another question that the sincere scientist who's seeking answers to his questions is asking Srila Śrīdhar Mahārāj, who is kind enough to answer. So this is now we're reading. So question: what part do the individual souls play in the process of creation? Srila Śrīdhar Mahārāj: I have described that at first a general conglomerate false ego, ahankar, is created. This is called Shambhu in Brahma Samhita, wherein it explains how the soul as a ray of consciousness mingles with material energy. Consciousness and Prakriti, the most primitive conceptions of energy, are categorically different. The conglomerate consciousness comes in contact with mass energy. And as they mingle together, a general ego evolves. That general ego gradually dissolves into innumerable egos, and the conglomerate consciousness distributes itself as individual units of consciousness absorbed in material energy. In this way, gradually, the individual conditioned souls come down and are entangled within the material world. In a primitive state, when the individual souls are massed together as a common whole, the conglomerate false ego or ahankar is known as a Mahat Tattva. As it evolves, it differentiates into innumerable individual units, just as an atom can be broken down into subatomic particles, electrons, protons, neutrons, and so on. The conglomerate ego gradually breaks into its component individual egos, jiva souls. Their position is tathastha, marginal, and undetectable. From that subtle, undetectable plane of marginal energy, consciousness first develops into the detectable plane as a whole, and then innumerable individual spiritual units are manifest from that mass lump of ego or Mahat Tattva. Gradually, the other elements of creation develop within this negative plane of exploitation. This world is sometimes pushing forth and sometimes withdrawing. In the same way that the heart expands and contracts again and again, the whole universe expands and contracts, regrouping within the one and again manifest as the many. The one and the many, the evolution and dissolution of the material universe takes place. As a heart expands and contracts, the whole universe is manifest and withdrawn. The same characteristics that we find in the smallest unit can be traced in the bigger units. This is the suggestion by which we may know the whole more or less. there are also some categorically new elements to be added to our knowledge. In this way, those who are within this universe can have some partial knowledge, but those who are independent, outside the contracting and expanding world, who are impartial onlookers, can give the real history. That is the revealed truth, which is distributed in installments according to the capacity of the people of the time, place, and circumstance. The revealed truth is found in varying degrees in the Bible, the Vedas, and the other scriptures of the world. Through this process, the truth is partially revealed in different places of the world in proportion, in proportion to the thinking and capacity of each particular group of people. The revealed truth is reliable, but still it is modified to fit the persons to whom it is extended. For that reason, we find differences in the different versions of the revealed truth. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam that medicine may be hidden within candy to treat the ignorant. In the same way, the revealed truth may be hidden within the mundane concessions of ordinary religion to help the ignorant class of men. Parokshavad Vedoyam. Still, Vedic revelation is conceived by the authorities as the most ancient as well as the most perfect of all versions of revealed truth. The revealed truth as presented by Srimad Bhagavatam and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu must be considered full-fledged theism. There it is mentioned what lies beyond this created world is the eternally dancing world. Here we are trapped in the world of contraction and expansion, but in the spiritual realm, everything is an eternal, blissful dance. Still, even the reality there is of a lower and higher type according to the nature of rasa, transcendental mellow, anandam, ecstasy, which is the desired substance of every conscious unit.
Prabhuji, can I? This is a. I don't want to interrupt you.
Please.
With what he just read, I'm just dancing in my mind. So these are the questions that I've been asking, and they're fully compatible with whatever brain that I have. It's fully compatible with whatever little so-called scientific knowledge. Fully compatible. This is what I can say is, Prabhuji, that it fills my thirst is completely quenched with this question that I always have, which is related to what is this creation and what is this, is completely satisfied and answered very coherently by what Mahārāj is, Guru Mahārāj is saying. And I would like to meditate on this for 100 years and still get relishment and positive identification. Yes, my experience plain is confirming what Guru Maharaj is saying. What he is saying is indeed, in my view, one of the highest revealed truth anybody could ask for in this scientific.
Hare Krishna. Arun Prabhu, I mean, you're a scientist, and I also consider you, you know that, like my brother. And we both have, Namaskar Anilji, welcome.
Namaskar.
And we have read so many times together, and this is, we have, at least in my mind, I've read other commentaries, different things. I'm not saying that I'm any kind of expert, but to me, this, like you said, I cannot but concur that this is the highest. It is just like an extreme mercy that somehow we have some connection to this. Beyond the mind, beyond intellect, this is like that aporoshe intelligence being given to us. Like he's saying over here that who can give the impartial real history are the onlookers who are outside and independent of this continuous expanding and contracting realm of this relative world. And this account and this, you could say, these words, they have that, like you're saying, that sympathetic resonance from within. Right?
Yeah.
So all glories to Param Guru Maharaj.
I would like to just add, anybody who is scientifically inclined, look at what Param Guru Maharaj has said. In precisely the word that we understand today in the quantum domain, which is to observe the world requires entanglement of the observer with the material state of the quanta.
Yes.
That's precisely the word that Param Guru Maharaj is using. How beautifully, and how many decades ago. He's precisely using the same word, what we understand today in the last 8 years. This is what our latest scientific standing has come about. And look, when he talks about 100 other things, and I'm just looking at 2 or 3 things where today's scientific thought has gone in, which is information. He talks about that in this soup. Then some information comes in, right? And that forms the local domain of that living entity. That's precisely today's information and quantum domains are merged.
Mm-hmm.
That is a leading edge. The cognition function of what we know, are capable of knowing, versus our entanglement, is known as the current frontier of experience by human beings. And Param Guru Maharaj is explaining, 97 prior precursor stages also, which is Parashaya Gyan, that he is sharing with us. The answer is being laid in front.
Hare Krishna. So we'll go on. Question. Krishna's pastimes are eternal. When Krishna finishes one pastime in this universe, his pastimes begin in another. at the time of the final annihilation, when all the universes are withdrawn, how do Krishna's pastimes continue? Srila Śrīdhar Mahārāj. When the universe is destroyed in the total annihilation of all the stars and planets, the Mahapralaya, this side almost equates to zero. It reaches equilibrium. But the spiritual world is always in full swing. No harm can be done to Krishna's pastimes because they have an eternal aspect. Question. But what happens to Krishna's Leela here on earth? Srila Śrīdhar Mahārāj. Suppose fruit falls from a tree. The fruit is gradually finished, but the tree remains. It is something like that. This material world may equate to zero, but Krishna's pastimes continue eternally. Question. What is the difference between Goloka, Krishna's place of pastimes in the transcendent world, and Gokula, Krishna's pleasure abode in this earthly plane? Srila Śrīdhar Mahārāj. Gokul Vrindavan eternally exists, but sometimes the seers are all absent. Gokula exists in the ideal world and is extended here. What we see from our different positions of existence. But Gokul is always there. If you have no eye to see something, it cannot be seen. If you have no hand to touch it, it cannot be touched. It is the same with Gokula. It is in such a plane where the different external processes which exert control over material energy cannot touch the fine ideal of existence in Gokula. If the earth vanishes, that does not mean that the whole solar system will vanish. The solar system may remain, but the men on the earth cannot see it any longer. Its influence on earth can no longer be felt. In a similar way, Gokula exists in another plane. It exists in the finest plane of reality. It is beyond the creation, beyond evolution and dissolution. Such subtle energy can be understood by analogy with ether. If earth is destroyed, ether may not be destroyed. Ether is within and outside earth. But with the dissolution of earth, ether may not dissolve, but continue to exist. The position of Gokula is something like that. This is confirmed by Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 9th chapter, verse number 35. Yatha mahanti bhutani bhutesh uchavacheshvanu pravishtani apravishtani tatha teshana teshvaham. O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I also exist within everything and at the same time I am outside of everything. Krishna's position is similar. He is there and not there. In Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 9, verse 4 and verse 5, he tells Arjuna, Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina matsthani sarvabhutani na chaham teshavastita na chamatstani bhutani pashyame yogam aishwaram bhuta brahna cha bhutastho mamatma bhuta bhavana. I am everywhere and nowhere. Everything is in me, and yet nothing is in me. In my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. Behold my mystic opulence, my simultaneous oneness and difference. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, I am not implicated by any of this. For I am the very source of creation. We have to understand the relationship between cause and effect. The cause and its effect are of different types. Even the inner cause and the outer cause may have different positions. The body may be disturbed, but the mind may not be. The mind may be disturbed, the soul may not be. But by this, we are to understand the difference between cause and effect. Subtle and gross, matter and spirit. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivajakacara Varastottara Sata Śrīla Bhakti Rakṣhak Śrīdhar Goswāmī Mahārāj ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Anil ji, some reaction please.
I have a good second right now. But yeah, I was just listening to that question, and the Veda also was trying to explain the scientific perspective, and how it is in line with what is being already said in these scriptures, right? So I just listened to that, but yeah, I came late, right? So I'm still listening.
Arun Prabhu, please. Why isn't all of this in some sort of syllabus in schools or in colleges? Why do you think that is? Starting with India.
Prabhuji, what can I say right now? At one time, we want to be progressive and in tune with the world and the latest scientific knowledge. Yet in India, we continue to run the same syllabus of 120 years ago. Aryan invasion theory that has been totally debunked, the caste system that has been completely debunked. But one can only say it is vested interest, not just inertia. That it is not, the syllabus are not brought up to date with the current material scientific knowledge. And this knowledge that Param Guru Maharaj talks about, this is extremely high. I wish this to be brought up and presented and be part of the Hindi syllabus of the CBSE or whatever schooling system there is. I mean, it is there, yet I do not know. Maybe it is so aparoksh that it requires mercy to become visible to only select people. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe, Guruji, from the bottom of my heart, I'm saying that after so many decades and after very pleasurable association in the Vaishnavas, in the last two sittings of this particular class, reading this words of the Param Guru Maharaj, this totally fulfills me. It really makes me, I'm telling you, it makes me feel like dancing, in my mind dancing physically.
Hare Krishna.
This is what I've been hunkering for. All this is what I've been seeking. The material aspect of the question that had in my mind. ये पूरी कुंजी दे दी है. And now with this kunji, now suddenly, depending on my capacity to even probe and understand these tattva and how it has come about and the validation, it really is now limited by my pygmy brain. But at least it is there for me to go to know. And maybe I was driven by the hunkering for knowing. But as we have seen, knowledge serves as a servant in the court of Bhakti. And maybe after this, my hunkering for knowledge will go away. I don't care about it.
You're a humble Vaishnav, but you're also a great scientist, and I don't know how many patents you have to your name, and so at least I'm very humbled, and I'm honored to have you as part of our panel here. We also have Somji over here. Somji, how did you like this, or any reactions, or anything you want to say? You're muted, Prabhu.
I'm just absorbing, Prabhuji, just absorbing, because there's so much to absorb and so much to think and meditate about. So that's what my state is, and I'm enjoying it that way, just being reclusive, and surrendering to all these wonderful messages, thoughts, and the flow of the messages that coming through. I mean, it's just so I just like to hear and listen and absorb. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Shamaji, would you like to share?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I must say that I feel very blessed, and to know this divine love is around and we are surrounded by it. I just truly believe that we can surrender ourselves to our God to feel that divine love. I will feel very blessed. Thank you, Prabhu, for sharing. Thank you.
Jai Gurudev. Chinmoy Dev Prabhu, please bless us with some of your reflections or anything.
Well, I have more questions than reflections, because this is very difficult for me
Well,
to grasp.
even your questions are divine. Please fire away.
So, Guru Maharaj is saying that earlier, last week, saying that this conglomerate mass of ego or mox tattva is coming from viraja, correct?
No, it is this mass of viraja is part of this mass of conglomerate ego. So it has this is called Mahat-tattva. Correct? He said Mahat-tattva. He used that word. So it has two aspects or two states of existence. Mahat-tattva, before the modes are agitated and time begins, is called pradhan, where the potentiality of all 24 elements, which includes the five senses, Panch Mahabhut, five objects of the senses, five knowledge gathering senses, mind, intelligence, ego, and the living entity, which is consciousness that has been put in. All of this is in the state of potentiality, but there is no agitation. That state is called pradhan. And when it starts to get agitated and it starts to develop in the three attributes, Sata, Raja, Tamo, then it becomes Prakriti. But all of it is, the thing is, our mind kind of is thinking in linearity or in the dimensions that we're in. But this is outside of those dimensions. So it takes a little while for all of this to kind of sink in, because there are, like this, if I try to see, there are multiple dimensions of what's going on, but it's all described as such. And my mind is not able to grasp it because I'm trying to think linearly. Okay, what happens first? Is this? Is this that? You know what I'm saying? But the way it's happening is not like that. So that is the cognitive dissonance that's happening as I'm trying to exercise my brain power. And it doesn't happen like that. So in a nutshell, if it makes sense, is so viraja is the causal substance. We heard from Param Guru Mahārāj, apa, and it resembles like watery, all accommodating principle, right? And within that, that's part of Mahat-tattva. And all of that is Prakriti. And all of that is material nature. And all of that has sprung from the source, which is in itself complete, outside of the Mahat-tattva. Right? So there is this complete ecosystem, which is called the spiritual world. And out of that complete system, this complete system has emerged. And even though this complete system has emerged, that system continues to be complete. So how the masters explain how this happens is the analogy of you going to the bank or me going to the bank and trying to withdraw cash and draw, let's say, $100,000, and then check the account still says full. Now to the mind, it doesn't add up. It will not add up. Why? Because I withdrew something. That's what my mind is, that is conditioning. So I'm thinking if I have withdrawn, then there should be a negative over there in the balance. But when I actually check the account, it's full. Right? So, from that complete whole, this complete system has emerged, yet that complete system remains complete. Now, this is material, that is spiritual, but ultimately, if you see, energy is energy. Sarva khalv idam brahma. Everything is consciousness. Everything is floating on consciousness. This entire world of experience is floating on consciousness. The basis is consciousness. The power of the observer or of observation is consciousness.
So, Prabhu, also we're told that when there's this awakening of the individual consciousness, we at that, the Jiva soul at that point, I don't know, is attracted either to the spiritual world or to the material world.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what Mahārāj is talking about at this point too? At this point where he talks, or this?
No. So when he talks, the moment he starts talking about Prakriti or Mahat Tattva, those souls who have already chosen the dark world is what is being talked about. Purely those. The ones in the spiritual they're different. That is not part of this. Because creation and dissolution happens only in the material world. The spiritual world is eternally dancing. There is no disturbance in the eternal world. There is no process of creation or dissolution there. It exists, and it exists. Eternally. So when he talks about those souls that are put into the Mahat Tattva, they are the conditioned souls. They are the souls who, after agitation, have chosen to taste, to be not taste, but to they prefer to reign in hell rather than serve in heaven. They like to exploit. Ichcha dvesha samuttena dandamohena bharata. I remember we read that verse. Ichcha dvesha samuttena dandamohena bharata. Because of ichcha, desire, agitation initially starts because of that desire in that tathastha plane. That causes the agitation. Ichcha. There is this desire that comes up. Desire to enjoy in separation because of having a separate, entirely separate interest. And dvesh, samuttena dandamohen, and then one falls into this duality. One is attracted to it. It becomes an attractive proposition. So it is those souls, those set of souls, that Param Guru Mahārāj is talking about, particularly in here. He is not talking about the eternally perfected souls of the spiritual sky, because they're free, they're serving. They're in their perfected state. Remember he says, Doimo Purusha Loke Charashchakshara. There are two kinds of living entities. So even living entities kind or the types there is gradation. So two have been explained. Do vimao purusho loke charascha aksharaivacha. Chara sarvani bhutani kutasthav aksharochate. So the eternally conditioned and the eternally liberated. The eternally conditioned want to enjoy here in separately, away from the center, and they're eternally conditioned, and they keep going in the cycle of birth and death, endlessly, playing out their desires and trying to enjoy in various ways. And then there is the eternally liberated. They are situated kutastha aksharochate in their divine nature. They are fixed. No disturbance there. Not disturbed by creation, dissolution. None of that. That disturbance is only for the eternally conditioned souls. Does that make sense, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. I'm very appreciative that you talk about the conditioned souls in the third person. Then I feel like I'm not one of them.
No. I could talk in first person. I mean, I'm totally conditioned. So there's
Gurudev says that 0.005% of Jiva souls make that decision to come here.
yeah.
Very small amount.
I'm one of them. Not proud, but so I can talk in first person, but
Not proud, but lucky.
I don't know. I wouldn't put it that way. But
I'm talking myself, lucky to be here. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. But in any case, our fortune is not to look at all of this in terms of where we are or why we're conditioned. It is more to look at the positive, like we have a way to get out of it. And we have the service connection. If we want, it's all there. All we have to do is actually want it. We don't have to have like, oh, you have to be first a perfected soul, you have to be such and such, you have to be born like this, you have to have hair like this. Nothing. You just have to want it. Like, no, I want to be in the I want to be corrected. That's all. All help comes, all help manifests from all quarters. Remember, we're talking about the conscious world. Now, the conscious world, you think it is not conscious of you and me? What we do, what we're endeavoring for? It is more conscious than we are. And how we can see that more and more is by faith. We pray every time, do Mangalacharan, and those are beautiful prayers, but behind that is this thing to surrender, that I want to surrender and be used by the higher order, not the other way around. Because if it was the other way around, I would be the biggest exploiter. And the first person that I'd be fooling is myself. So we offer ourselves completely, as much as our capability is, to the higher plane, to the conscious plane, that please use us. And then if they want, then they can use us. If not, that's okay. We are still fortunate. So it's not to consider that I'm fallen or I'm this or I'm that. I may be whoever. It doesn't matter. My faith is in that plane. That's what matters. It's my ideal. Because my teacher looks at my potential. He doesn't look at who I am right now. Because if that was the case, I would not be here. I'd be like rejected, application rejected. You can't apply here. You don't have the necessary skills or requisite points or whatever. But that's not the thing. He looks only at potential. What I can be, and not what we are today. And that's our fortune. So everyone who's listening and who hasn't had the opportunity, you must associate with the devotees. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math, look it up, come in, go to your nearest centers. The sooner the better. Right, Chinmoy Prabhu? Isn't that? Do you concur?
Hare
Krishna. So with that, if there is anyone else who'd like to chime in, I would be inviting the elite Kirtan group.
You have to give them a name. Kirtan group.
That's the best. That's the best I could come up with. Elite Kirtan. They require like invitations and different kinds of perks to. Give me a second, please.
Prabhuji, I will mute myself in the room in my office.
Okay, sure.
So you are still in office?
Production campaign चल रही है. Tomorrow day.
We have to begin. लगातार 3 हफ्तों से शायद आप ऑफिस ही अटेंड कर रहे हैं, जहाँ तक मुझे याद आ रहा है.
नमस्कार प्रीति जी.
नमस्कार प्रभु.
That's too low. Yeah, that's way too low.
Who is this beautiful person with an energy?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Even that was musical. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
Hare Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Nana Nityananda
Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda
Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda
Hari Haraya Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namaha
Hariharaya Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namaha
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha
Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan
Gopala Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan
Giridhari Gopinatha Madana Mohan
Giridhari Gopinatha Madana Mohan
Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra
Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra
Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda
Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda
Jaya Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath
Jaya Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath
Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath
Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath
Ichai Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan
Jai Gosai Kari Charana Bandhan
Jaha Hoite Vignana Shabishta Puran
Jaha Hoite Vigna Nasha Bishta Puran
Ichai Gosai Jar Muitara Das Tasabara Padarenu Mora Panchagras
Shabara Padare no Mora Panchagras
Tadera Charana Se Vivakta Sane Bas
Adera Charana Sevi Bhakta Sane Bas
Jana me Mora Iya Bilash
Nome Mora Eya Vilas
Nichai Gosai Jave Braja Koila Bas Shri Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Korila Prakash
Shri Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Korila Prakash
Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan
Anand Bala Hari Bhaja Vrindavan
Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majayaman
Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majayaman
Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyas
Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyas
Hari Naam Sankirtana Kohe Narottama Das
Harinam Sankirtan
Hari Haraya Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namaha
Hariharaya Namah Krishna Jadavaya Namaha
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha
Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev.
Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev.
Jagaranga Sundar, Jagaranga Sundar, Jagaranga Sundar, Jagaranga Sundar.
Jai Gauranga Sundar, Jai Gauranga Sundar, Jai Gauranga Sundar, Jai Gauranga Sundar. Jai. Any volunteers for Jai Dhani? All right, take it away. Jai.
Jai. Jai Om Vishwatmanam Chabam Chattara Varasar Sata Shri Srimad Bhakti Dev Goswāmī Mahārāj ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Jai Om Vishwatmanam Sata Shri Srimad Bhakti Dev Goswāmī Mahārāj ki Jai. Jai. Jai Om Vishwatmanam Chabam Chattara Varasar Sata Shri Srimad Bhakti Dev ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Jai Om Mahārāj ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Jai Om Ananda Bhakti Vinoda Thakur ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Jai Om Raghunath Das Bhakti Mahārāj ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Shri Rupmanu Guru Bhagat ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Namaskar Shri Das Thakur ki Jai.
Jai.
Ananda Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Shri Baladeva Vidya Bhushan ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti Prabhu ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Shri Nartama Shama Mandish ki Vaishnav Chakravarti ki Jai. Jai. Shri Govinda Vandas Thakur ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Shri Nand Samrat ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Saprasada Shri Nityananda Prabhu ki Jai.
Jai.
Saprasada Shri Mahaprabhu ki Jai.
Jai.
Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Ram Kunda Radha Kunda Girdhar Govardhan ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Ki Jai.
Jai.
The Bhakti Vigna Vinashaya Shri Nrsimha Deva ki Jai.
Jai.
Bhakta Prabhu Prahlad Maharaj ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Purti Maharaj. Jai.
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 Durante Radha Shri Bhagavatam Chaitanya Charitamrita ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Vishwa Vaishnava Sabha ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Akurak Matri Chaitanya Mat ki Jai.
Jai.
Sadi Sagamat ki Jai.
Jai.
Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat ki Jai.
Jai.
Vishwa Sabya Sakamat ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Sri Damaipur ki Jai.
Jai.
Sri Navadip ki Jai.
Jai.
Nirvan Pursadam Dam ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai. Vasudeva Subhadra Jamna ji ki Jai.
Jai.
Shri Govinda Kunda ki Jai.
Jai.
Shri Shara Shiva Gamra Jiv ki Jai.
Jai.
Samvita Vaishnava Mandu ki Jai.
Jai.
Samvita Bhakta Vinda ki Jai.
Jai. Jai. Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari.
Shri Anika ji ki jai. Preeti Bikram ji ki jai.
Jai.
Anil ji and Anya ki jai.
Jai.
Shripad Arun Krishna Prabhu ki jai. Shripad Chinmoy Dev Prabhu ki jai. Shyama ji ki jai. Nandarani Didi ki jai. Sangeeta ji ki jai. Nand Kishore Prabhu ki jai. All the assembled devotees ki jai. Jai Srila Bhakti Nirmal Acharya Mahārāj ki jai. Jai Srila Bhakti Pavan Janardhan Mahārāj ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Acharya Brind ki jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back.